Ladies and gentlemen, you've been waiting for it. You've been asking for it. The Dr. Drake PhD album review with Annie Banani. The views from the guy. At least you didn't say the chick's no good. Hey everyone. Views Thinny 6 Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of this new Drake record over here, Views. This is the latest full-length album from rapping and singing sensation Drake. This is his highly anticipated new record. Once Views from the Six, now just simply shortened to Views. And this is a follow-up to his last commercial project, which was a retail mixtape titled If You're Reading This, It's Too Late, a project that even I was impressed with up until that point, not really considering myself a Drake fan. You could even see that the project preceding that mixtape, Nothing Was the Same, was not really a big fan of that. Definitely one of my least favorite Drake projects, an album that is just too spacey, atmospheric, and gutless for its own good a lot of the time. Although Drake did come through with some of his biggest and most memorable hits on this album. Started from the bottom, Worst Behavior, also Hold On We're Going Home, career-defining singles. But going into this new album over here, we only had like one great hit, and that was Hotline Bling, and that's almost a year old now, and it's like a bonus track. The other teaser tracks, the leaked Controlla, Pop Style, One Dance, not really up to snuff for the light-skinned Keith Sweat, especially considering how many surprise hits and fan favorites that he's dropped over the past year or so between the If You're Reading This Is Too Late mixtape and the Meek Mill beef. To me, Views is almost like that whole era of Drake's career is just erased and doesn't exist, and this is now just a direct sequel to Messaging. It's similarly emotional, spacey, cloudy. We find Drake up in the clouds, literally, photoshopped very cheesily on top of Toronto's CN Tower. And he's taking this similarly spacey and sad sound and really going the distance with it, with a set of tracks that are well over an hour. It's like a near feature film length, but I don't really think it justifies that length. It's not like this project is conceptual or cinematic, and I don't really hear anything that's going to carry Drake over into the next year or so. We're going to have to wait for a new project. Again, to get into the tracks that led up to the release of this album, Pop Style, a very flaccid banger whose major highlight was actually a verse from Kanye West that does not make it on the cut of this album. The entire track is handled by Drake now, and there are, of course, some struggle bars on this track, like I've got so many chains, call me Channing Tatum. As far as bangers go, it's weak. And again, the song One Dance, it's one of several cuts on here where Drake tries to infuse this really gutless, half-hearted dancehall vibe. Awful production on this track. The beat is a total mess. Various parts of the beat sounding like they're different sound qualities. Awful guest singing. The song itself is mediocre. Drake's vocals are just sniveling. The track Controlla is slightly better, but Drake sounds totally dorky on this track, talking about tings. I don't know why our Canadian child actor turned rapper millionaire has decided to give us a little bit of fake patois, but I want to die. It only further makes him sound out of place over this sort of instrumental, and I don't care how big the check Beanie Man got was. And speaking of money, there's one track here that really stuck out to me as hilariously classist. The song Child's Play, a song about a relationship where Drake is essentially fed up with what he sees as these really ghetto mannerisms of this girl that he's dating, and he threatens to take her back to the hood if she doesn't, I guess, act accordingly. She fights with him at the Cheesecake Factory, which is definitely one of the top 5 most hilariously bad lines
on this entire project. She takes his Bugatti down to CVS to go get Kotex, and Drake does the wussiest, most passive-aggressive thing ever, and instead of confronting her about it, he hides the car keys. It's like a storyline out of a reality show where a old white CEO with more money than he knows what to do with has a fetish for black women and habitually picks them up at clubs in urban areas only to whisk them away to his expensive mansions and so on and so forth, and then he tries to force them to act the way that he wants them to act. And at the very end of the track, Drake's vocals start fading out of nowhere. Maybe someone made an executive decision and decided, yeah, that's enough of that. And in the song, Drake assures us that he's treating this girl right because his mother raised him right, but I'm not really sure if I can trust his side of the story, considering just the level of douchebaggery in these lyrics. In this song as well, I believe he goes on to say that he lies to her about the number of women that have been in this bed that they're in together. Again, just a really weird track, and lyrics that just put a sour taste in my mouth. Then there are other cuts on here that are just lifeless rap songs with boring flows, like the song 9, which features struggle bars like this, or the cut Faithful, which has a badly placed Pimp C feature that just seems like it shouldn't be there. It just should not be there. I don't see how he could possibly co-sign struggle bars like this on this track. And at the very end of this little snippet of vocals that are inserted into this track, R.I.P. Pimp C, he says explicitly the only person in the game he fucks with is Bun B. He literally says it in his verse. So you're taking a man's rap verse, a dead man's rap verse, in which he explicitly says the only person he fucks with is his partner in UGK. You're putting it on some other rapper's rap song, and Bun B on this track, of course, is nowhere to be found. The feature, if you could call it that, just really makes no sense within the context of this song. It's just there to add authenticity to Drake's rapping, which was one of the big problems I had with Nothing Was the Same. This sense of insecurity in the rap game, like Drake needs to prove himself despite his success to other rappers that he's a real rapper. And part of the reason I liked If You're Reading This Is Too Late is that it seemed like there was this huge sense of confidence, like Drake could not be shaken. And now we're back to these passive-aggressive lines, these whiny relationship bars, these allusions to authenticity. The best cuts on this record are the ones that could have snugly fit into If You're Reading This Is Too Late and had just sounded like it fit with the rest of the album. Tracks that are essentially laid-back bangers with catchy flows that are kind of melodic but emotionally flat and calm, sort of like the song Pop Style or Still Here or the song Hype, maybe my favorite track on the entire project. There's also the cut with Future, Grammy, which would have sounded nice on Drake and Future's collaborative release that came out not too long ago. And there's also cuts on here like Views and Weston Road Flows, where Drake goes really biographical and deep into his past and his experiences before coming up in the rap game, or sort of just being on the cusp of that. Which reminds me a lot of the song 6 p.m. in New York, which was the closing track to If You're Reading This Is Too Late, and features lines that I actually liked on this record, like they'd rather run up on me than run toward their goals. And given that there are personal stories on this record, of course some of those personal stories are going to be relationship driven because it's Drake. You have the song You With Me, for example, which features the beautiful bar, "You toyin' with it like Happy Meal." God, where are the ghostwriters? Where are the ghostwriters on this one? Still, I do like the vocal climax on the bridge of this track when Drake goes on about how other rappers sort of cut a check to steal this flow. I like that part a lot. Drake's singing voice has come a long way since the days of Thank Me Later. But this track and others on here that sort of dive into Drake's relationships in the past, there's nothing really that particularly juicy or interesting here. Again, the most, I guess, eyebrow-raising part is Child's Play, and that part grabs my attention not even for a good reason. The best of these relationship bars for me come at the closing verse of the song Redemption, where Drake is rapping about how they get things popping in the master bedroom, but ignore the skeletons in his closet, and how she tries to tip the scales when he goes to weigh his options. Whoa! And I like the very grand opening track too. Kind of sounds like something instrumentally that could have been on like a James Bond soundtrack or something. It's just huge orchestral instrumentation. And Drake's opening vocal line on this track is actually really pretty and ear-grabbing. And the song itself is about betrayal and Drake needing to keep his loved ones and his family closer because I guess over the past year or so he feels kind of stabbed in the back. Maybe this could have had something to do with the whole Meek Mill beef. But then, even on this track too, we get struggle bars. He says that he saw potential in you like when Chrysler tried to make that one car that was just like the Bentley. And that's literally what Drake says. And it doesn't even like flow rhythmically with anything else that he's saying or singing. It just kind of seems like this weird meandering simile that he tries to make. The most struggled simile on this entire record. It's like Drake found a lot of these lines in Bob P. Struggleton's orphanage for abandoned rap similes, and seeing all these just starved, ugly, unloved similes just broke his heart so much that he decided to all give them a home on this record. And I get it. I get that some of the singing is nice and it's pleasant and it's catchy, and I get that some of the beats are great too. I like the dreamy Mary J. Blige vocal layers and samples on the song Weston Road Flows. Feel No Way. I like the beat there too. It's a little bit of a throwback, kind of feels like a mix of 80s rap with some very glossy contemporary R&B keyboards too. There are beat highlights here that I like, though I do wish the production generally was a little punchier, a little more colorful, a little more meat on the bones, or just simply kind of going in that moody and nocturnal direction that if you're reading this, It's Too Late did. All that being said, there's no excuse for some of the lines on this record being as bad as they are. Number one, because Drake right now in terms of relevance and his career is kind of at the top. You would hope that he'd be putting out his best material at this point. And number two, he's had decent lines on his records before, so why not repeat that here? I mean, bars heavy like Triple XL is one of many very thin, starving similes on this album that are just filler lines that just don't really add anything to this album. They're not clever, they're not interesting, they're not funny, they don't cause you to rewind, they don't cause you to actually even remember what Drake is rapping about, saying, really anything. It's forgettable, and that's this album's biggest crime. So much of what's here is forgettable. There are highlights here for sure, but they're not so great that they make me think of some of the best material that's come out across Drake's career, and they're so few and far between among the 20 tracks on this album that they do very little to pull up the overall experience of this album. The best track, in my opinion, is literally the closing bonus track that, again, is almost a year old. There's so much redundancy on here. Like, we didn't need 3 dancehall tracks. There's so many just unmemorable bars and cuts, and what is memorable is because it's just so in bad taste. And then there are songs that are just total filler and didn't need to be here, like the song Without You, which is just the same vocal line again and again and again for 3 minutes straight. Again, where are the ghostwriters? I mean, were there ghostwriters on this one? If no, bring them back. And if yeah, hire twice as many ghostwriters as you have going now. I can't really say I like this record. You know, it's not the worst rap album I've heard all year, but it's so underwhelming. It's like Nothing Was the Same, but in a way worse, because Nothing Was the Same had better highlights, and at least it kind of knew when to stop. This album just goes on and on and on and on, and as it continues, it seems to deliver less and less and less. And I'm just not really sure what to say about it other than that. I mean, here's some more struggle bars that I might have forgotten to mention. I get green like Earth Day. That was so terrible. It's like Drake really wanted to put together some cringeworthy lines on this thing, but I'm going to stop here, or else I'll just go on about this record forever. I'm feeling a decent strong 4 on this one. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit that like,
If you like, please subscribe, because this puppy wants you to. Oh, what a baby. What a cute baby. You were napping. And I woke you up. I'm sorry. Just everybody wants to see you, because you're such a cutie. Oh, thanks. Forever.